hours away here from Southampton, England, St. Petersburg, Russia, Hamburg, Germany, just off the coast of Namibia, Great Saharan Desert, Seville, Spain, Ait Ben Hadou, Ghana coast, Cape Town, South Africa, from the Pampas of Argentina, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, in Artemisa, Cuba. What am I talking about? Well, let's start at the start. What's that got to do with anything for this class? It's the heart, the core of Berber civilization, Falkland Island War, Peter the Great, the Celtic Tiger, wow, the tiger, the G20, historic epicenter of the Atlantic slave trade, Irish potato famine of 1845 to 1852. Are you learning anything about the world? I know I am, and I love it. It makes you feel alive. Woo! The Pampas is so freaking awesome. Booyah! What about that? And now here I am back in the good old US of A on this floating TEDx event, yes? To share a little bit about the story of that adventure that you saw in snippets, but more how that adventure rejuvenated me, reduced me, nay, inspired me to reinvent myself as a professor, reinvent myself as an educator, reinvent myself as a learner. And that's a challenge I want to throw out to everyone in this room and everyone who ever hears this talk forever on planet Earth, because we must rejuice everything. And if you know anything about me, what is it I want to reinvent? Well, I am wildly, crazily, insanely passionate about creating a global citizenry, about getting people thinking globally, about getting every single student across this great nation of ours to be prepared to be out in a global world, because we are living in the end games of globalization, my friend, a keyword we bandy about all the time, but what does it really mean? It means we're all connected now. We all recognize that we're part of a global economy, right? We live when, environmental issues are global, food sources are global, cultures are becoming global, legal law stuff's becoming global. And what are we doing to prepare our students to live and thrive and be successful in that global environment that they're going to have to be in? Nothing. Or maybe really not that much. So what I've been passionate about is not just teaching people facts about stuff, not saying, here, learn all this stuff about the world. What I really want to do, and will continue to do to my dying breath, is to actually impassion people, get them excited and engaged with what's going on in the world, to inspire them to be lifelong learners and keep up with what's going on in the globe, because that is going to be the eventual measure of success for this generation of students, and I dare say our country. Now, what have I been doing to fulfill this goal, this drive, this mission that I have? Well, I've been teaching for about a decade and a half at Virginia Tech. And I just teach this dinky little intro course called World Regions, general world geography course, but I've done it with zest and with zeal, and I want to get people fired up. And I've used every mode and means of communication, new digital stuff, graphic novels, comic books, podcast, international news, created assignments, and made people go out and see what's happening in the world and talk to each other, and social media events that have brought in international people into the classroom. I'll do anything to get people juiced up and jived up about this class. And I think that I was doing pretty good. There was a pretty good measure of success by any way you looked at it, because the class demand, the student demand for this class has grown over the last decade from 60 to 600 to 2,750 that we do every other semester. Live, 2,750 people in one classroom getting fired up about global events. And I got to tell you, I'm pretty damn good, all right? I thought I was doing a pretty good job. And then I got invited to come hang out on a boat. It's not a boat, it's a ship. And it's not just any ship, it's a floating college ship that we call Semester at Sea. And I got to tell you, I'd never heard of it. I was pretty reserved. I'm like, what is this? It took a leap of faith. That was outside of my comfort zone. And that was the first step to reinventing myself. Because friends, I'm here to tell you, many of you already know this, but putting 700 students and faculty from a diverse background, diverse knowledge base, diverse specializations from all around the country and the globe, and smashing them all together onto a vessel. I'm telling you, 4 months, 4 continents, 14 countries later, was a cold splash in the face to this guy who thought he was doing it pretty well. And that's what made me re-examine what I was doing, and is making me reinvent this professor so that I can do a lot more, a lot better, and I want to encourage all of you to do it as well. What am I talking about? How am I reinventing myself from my experience here? Well, first, I was bringing the classroom into the world for the first time for many, many, many moons. I hadn't really thought about it because I'm a pretty good lecturer and people kind of like the class, but getting people out into the real world is a real eye-opener. Yes, they're field trips, and anybody from any school can do them. Do more of them. Because, of course, when you get out into the field with people, the environment, the landscape is a character of the lesson itself, and some can be exceptionally powerful, like the dungeons of the slave coast of Ghana. Some can be extremely enlightening. Talking with people about Nelson Mandela on site in where he grew up, say, in South Africa. But what is the real key here is that talking with students in that environment, I have a better finger on the pulse of what they know, what they understand, and what their questions are. I had forgotten that education is about dialogue. It's about engagement. It's a tough thing to do when you're standing behind a podium in front of 3,000 people. And I got back to that base level of, oh, cool. Now I have a better touch of what they understand and what they know. And I knew this when the first person, we were doing a tour of the D-Day Omaha Beach, a sentinel geographic point in human history. And someone said, Professor, why were the Russians invading France? I'm like, okay, hold on. You come to that realization that, hey, wait a minute, these folks aren't on the same level as these folks used to be 20 years ago. And that's why I had to step back. I'm not suggesting anyone's any dumber. I'm saying we get older. And I've been teaching for a couple decades. And I just had to realize, oh, wait a minute. No one who's currently in college was alive for the Cold War. They have no living memory of that. I need to recalibrate and readjust what I'm doing. But you know what was even more important than that was hanging out with people before and after class, dining with them, eating with them. And in that environment, you start to see much more important things than just the knowledge they have. It's how they are consuming media, how they're communicating with each other, how are they doing their homework, if they're doing their homework. All of these things are actually crucial for me, the instructor guy in the front, to kind of understand what's going on here with this generation. And I learned a wealth of things of what's going on with this generation during this experience that is making me recalibrate and reinvent the communications that I have. Because one of the other things that we're living through is the end game for the standard old, white, usually male college professor standing behind a podium talking to you for a couple hours while you sit there, rapt with attention. Those glory days are fading fast. And by the way, there's plenty of good old white dudes who lecture quite well behind a podium. I'm one of them, all right? But I'm losing this generation as well. We need to reevaluate and reinvent communication and engagement, because that's what education's really all about. 2, I broadened my horizons, personal horizons and personal knowledge base, well beyond anything I could have imagined during this voyage. I actually feel sorry for the students because I gained about 10,000 times more than they did. On the ship, off the ship, stuff I had never talked about because everybody knows how schools are and how academia is at the university. And everybody's kind of quite siloed, right? Your college is siloed within the university, and your department is siloed within that college, and everybody is siloed in their department with their own little specialized research papers they do. And if any of them dare venture out from the ivory tower, they go to a conference to visit with 300 people who are studying the exact same thing they're studying. And I'm afraid that maybe that's happening to K through 12 a little bit as well, that people are specializing what they teach because you have a specialized test you need to teach too. And so we're becoming way too siloed on the planet. And coming on Semester at Sea made me think, oh, wow, look at this. I just now am talking to all these different professors. None of them are from my major. And I learned a ton, just hanging off the starboard side, talking to marine biologists about cool water currents and how they affect desert formation in Namibia, or hanging out with a business professor who taught me all about this is casual up in the lounge, just talking about container shipping and how it's revamped the entire world economy, and it's all very geographic. These are conversations I never would have had, ever would have had. And then you get out into the real world with all the stops that you take. And I go out of my way to talk to people in pubs and restaurants, taxi cab drivers, coal miners, whoever's in the way. I will start talking to them about, hey, what's going on in your country? What's going on here? Give me the finger on the pulse. One of the smartest dudes I've met in my entire life was an 80-year-old cab driver in Cape Town who had lived through, obviously, the entire era of Mandela. And from the street level could tell me everything that was going on. Of course, I can always tell you the good side of town versus the bad side of town. Good knowledge to have, too. That guy was worth 1,000 academics. So in this environment, I expanded myself personally, and we need to reinvent our context, reinvent our idea that everything must be specialized. Broaden it back up, have those interactions and intersections. I learned a ton. 3. I used 1 and 2 and came up with 3 because I'm good like that, all right? Number 1, interaction with students. Number 2, interaction in the world. Number 3, I then brought the world back into the classroom like I had never done in the last 15 years. Meaning that I am not what we call a tenure track professor at the university. So I didn't have the leisure of having the sabbatical to take a year off paid to write a book that no one would read, all right? In other words, I had to keep working for a living. And so while I was on this voyage, I was simultaneously teaching 2,000 students online back home. And the way that I was adding 1 and 2 to get 3 is I was like, because I've never liked online classes. I'm like, oh, no, you can't get the interaction. You can't connect with them. You can't see what's going on. And so I was hesitant, but I think we came across the magic formula right here on this vessel. Because what I did, and what you saw a sample of in the first 90 seconds, was that everywhere we went, I did multiple podcasts on the scene from wherever about whatever. It's all geography. It's all getting interaction and interest in the world, yes. And put it up on YouTube and then told the 2,000 people, go watch this for your class. Then I'll give you a test on it. And typically when you give people assignments in classes, it's like, oh no, an assignment. Do I gotta do this? Wah, wah, wah. I found this semester people said, can you give us more of those? Can you do more of that? Really? You want more work? Yes. We want more work. That was awesome. What we think we might have stumbled across is, if it not the first, certainly the first biggest virtual study abroad, because people were enraptured with it back home. 2,000 people stayed in the game and watched everything, and then they showed it to their friends in their dorm, and then they showed it to their family, and then they showed it to their grandparents, who hit me up and said, you're cool. And I was like, thanks, Grandpa, all right? We did all of that, okay? Reinventing the classroom itself, or at least the online classroom. And it's terribly exciting stuff. We live in terribly exciting times to be doing all of these great things, and we need to do way more. That's the point. Bringing it all back home. Oh, the nautical term, let's sail the ship back to the home port for the wrap up. Given all that we can now do with technologies and with students and with interactions and in the digital world and connecting with people all over planet Earth, we got to do a lot more. We have to reinvent the educational process. Okay? Now, am I suggesting to every K through 12 teacher and every college professor out there, oh, that you need to reinvent like I did? You all need to go on a boat. You need to do more field trips. You should go on Semester at Sea. Well, the answer is yes. It's totally cool, and you won't regret it. But the real answer is no. I'm saying you need to reinvent yourself, you teachers and you learners. Reinvent yourself for what you do, for what your specialty is. You need to recalibrate. You need to step back every now and again and reinvent, because there's so much going on now with technology. So much is changing. If you're still doing the same thing you were 10 years ago, you're done. There's no way you're connecting with this generation of learners, okay? So try something. Try anything. Try Skyping with people, political leaders, or just classrooms of kids in Korea. Try inviting in digitally. Interview a hydraulic engineer in Beijing into your college hydraulics class. We now have the tools, and they're relatively free to connect people all over planet Earth and share knowledge like never before in human existence. And we're just now touching the iceberg on all of this stuff. We all need to reinvent. And why? Because you need to stay not just in touch with the modern stuff. I want you to stay inspired, and I want you to stay passionate. Because my main job as a professor is to instill inspiration in people to become lifelong learners. All the facts I teach them, they're going to forget that. If I've inspired them, they're going to go forever. And an uninspired professor is never going to inspire anybody. An unpassionate professor is never going to bring passion to anything. So step back, recalibrate, and reinvent whatever it is you do. And my final challenge is that we're all in this together. It's just not for professors or teachers. This is for students. This is for parents. This is for grandparents. This is for learners, and that should be everybody. Reinvent yourself on a periodic basis to help make a better educational system, to demand more from it, and make a better country and world, because self-invention never stops. Party on.